Ladies and gentlemen, how we doing? This is Vince Bell from Team Bell Training. I'm sitting here with my man Jeremy Hurd from the Hurd Group, and today we are here collaborating this effort just to bring about some issues that we need to talk about in the world today. As everybody knows what's going on, the untimely death of this young man on the street at the hands of the police, where they initially charged one man, and today, thankfully, we found out right before we started filming that they charged the last 3 cops today.
Oh, I didn't hear that.
Yes. It just happened. That's why I was a little tardy getting here.
You're holding out on me.
I was holding out. Breaking news. So I'm gonna give Jeremy an opportunity to give him a little bit about who he is, and then I'll come back to me.
Well, Vince and I are firefighters down here in South Florida, and we've known each other a while. We were just talking about the fact that we've both been working in this job for 16, 17 years. You got some time before here, and we're now the old men in our department. You got some gray in your goatee. I got a little gray in the hair here. It's we've kind of learned, we've lived, and this all started a few years back. Give a little history here. A few years back during Colin Kaepernick's kneeling time, when that was initially happening, and I believe there was some racial tension in Dallas, and then some cops were killed in Dallas, and you and I sat and talked. We'll talk about kind of how we came to that a little bit, but during this time, George Floyd dies, and I'm watching all this, and I'm working at my fire department, and I run into one of our new young men, a black man, and his name's Mike, and I said, "Hey, Mike, let me ask you a question." Mike doesn't know who I am at all. He just knows I'm Captain Hurd.
Right.
Hey, Mike, I know you don't know me, but I said I'm a middle-aged white guy, and I'm trying to figure out how to respond to this. And he looked at me like I had like 4 heads.
Right.
And we talked a little bit, and we shared a little bit. We'll talk maybe a little bit more about that later. But we discussed kind of the reaction he has and what he's grown up in. And it reminded me of the fact that you and I had that discussion so many years ago. And I got on I was like, I really need to be able to respond to this. And I want to be able to post something on social media. I want to talk to my friends about this. I want to educate. But I wasn't really sure how to do it. And so last Saturday morning, I started my little text group with all you guys, about I think 6 or 7 of you.
Yeah.
And I think my initial thing was, guys, I'm angry. I don't really know what to do. I don't know how to respond. Please help.
Right.
And you guys are awesome because all of you immediately jumped in with, hey, here's a couple of people called, a couple of people text back and gave some really good advice. But I thought about the fact that really how this starts is we don't even know what to say. Like as a white man, I don't even know how to respond, except I know I'm angry. I'm angry about somebody killing somebody else, regardless of who we're talking about.
Period.
And then since then, you see all the things that have come out of it. And so that was how this all started. And so you and I talked, and I made the comment, hey, let's have a panel. And you're like, no. It's you and me first. We'll do a panel later.
Right.
2 men having a conversation. So that's really how we got here. I know that we're going to be playing this possibly on Fire Engineering Radio. We're going to play this with your website, social media, my website, social media. I want to say we're influencers. I don't think we are.
Not yet.
We're not cool enough. We're not pretty enough. We're not Kardashians or whatever.
Not Kardashian.
We're close. I have a Kardashian butt. Do you have a? We both do.
I got a serious Kardashian butt. I squat, so I got problems back there.
But yeah, so we decided to come together, and I just wanted to kind of have a conversation, and really, even my post today was we're going to record this because we want other people to start their discussion, and we want other people to be able to talk about this and have conversation.
Yeah, we've been getting, I don't know about you, but just 3 minutes ago, from that post, people have been asking, hey, what time you guys going live?
Yeah.
I'm like, no, this is not going to be a live conversation because we need to have this conversation first, and then we'll allow the comments to come in, and then maybe we'll either do a part 2, but we're definitely going to do a panel discussion so we can mix it up and bring it in a little bit wider.
Well, this also allows you to edit out any dumb comments I make, too, let's be honest.
Yeah, and when I blow my top, we can just edit that out, no problem, don't worry about it. But no, look, that's the best part about it, and that's why I told Brother Jeremy here, I said, look, it needs to be you and I first. We need to have a discussion based on the fact that we had this discussion 3 years ago.
Yeah.
3.5 years ago.
Was it really that long ago?
It's been 3 years ago.
I know it was around Christmas time.
It was December 30th.
And I was in North Carolina because I remember I was in North Carolina sitting outside of a restaurant getting Wi-Fi trying to talk to you on the phone because it was the only way we could connect. So.
Right. Yeah, it was definitely during Christmas time. So
it's amazing.
But yeah, it's a good thing. So you want to give them the little history there? We'll start from there and come
let's
back.
start there. So I know that the church I was at the time, local church here, really large place. There was all the racial tension going on, and then the culmination was, I don't remember all the details really, to be honest, but I remember that what took place was, it was that fall, I think. It was right at the end of the summer, that summer in that area.
It was that fall.
And so, because football season was going on, all those things were taking place. And I know the end of it was the 5 Dallas police officers who were shot, I believe. Was the kind of the end of that period there.
Right.
And I remember my pastor had planned on doing this message, and he got up and he just goes, listen, I had other stuff planned, but we got to have a conversation. And I never forget, and I told you this and you kind of laughed. And he said, I'm a middle-aged white guy about to talk about race, which makes me not probably the right guy to do it.
Yeah.
But I feel like somebody needs to say something. He said, so I've asked everybody I know that has some type of experience in this. And he did a really good job on the message, and he talked about a lot of things, talked about God's love, and he talked about some things we can do individually. But he finished it with this statement. He said, please, no matter what else you do, find somebody different than you this week and have a conversation. Ask them the questions and get to know what's different about you. And I thought, honestly, I've got plenty of people that are different than me, and I talk to them all the time. I mean, I'm the chaplain for a fire department, which means I have to accept people of all race, creed, color, gender, sexual preference, belief. It doesn't matter. I need to be able to help them where they're at.
Right.
So I thought, I'm good. And you and I happened that week, I think it was maybe the next day, 2 days later, we happened to do an active shooter training. And I looked at you and I said, hey, Vince. And you and I knew each other pretty well. And I said, hey, Vince, I got a question for you. I told you the story. And I said, I'm supposed to ask you what's different. And you go, do you really want to know? And I said, yeah. And you're like, are you sure?
Yeah.
And I said, no, I really want to learn. And we sat down and had conversations. I don't know. We talked probably off and on for the next few months about different topics. And I remember probably one of the most poignant comments that you made to me was Colin Kaepernick was kneeling at the time. And I said to you, I go, I believe in what he's talking about, but I don't like how he's doing it. And you looked at me without a hesitation. You said, so what should he do? And I go, I don't know. I'm thinking I don't need to have a solution. I just don't like what he's doing. And you said, well, what's his goal? And you really explained it to me. The goal is to have people start having a conversation, which is exactly what was happening on both sides, in the middle, people on either extreme. And I remember at the time sort of understanding, and now 3.5 years later, kind of coming full circle, I really understand now because of that education. Right. And I'm grateful I'm not being educated now. I'm grateful that you educated me back then because, listen, I've been through things in my department since then where I've tried to bridge gaps with minorities and with trying to bring people on to help me with stuff and gotten just blasted for trying to do that because like, hey, who do you think you are? I'm like, I'm just trying to help. And I thought I was going to be the great guy doing it. And you're like, I don't think you understand how this works.
It's not that simple.
So that was kind of how we started the conversation.
Right.
And I think that really, we had a lot of conversations since then, but that's really what kind of
a big one.
The beginning. And then we did our fire engineering show that fall, and I had a lot. I mean, at Christmas, and a lot of people comment on the fact that it was heartwarming to hear two people, a black man and a white man, having a conversation that was, here's what's really happening in the fire service, and really and educating each other on our different viewpoints. Right.
And that's, to me, the best part about everything that we got going on. When the Kaepernick situation was going on, tensions were very, very high.
Yeah.
And because, the whole misconception of he's disrespecting the flag, disrespecting the military, and these were just individuals that just did not understand. And as I told Jeremy, I don't expect you to understand.
Yeah, that's true.
I don't expect you to understand because you haven't experienced it, you haven't gone through anything, you haven't lived it. So I don't really expect you to understand that situation. But yet people in the fire service look at me, for instance, where I am today, and they think, well, he's like me. He hasn't gone, wrong. Right?
Yeah.
And so, but when you get down and actually look and to see where I came from to get to where I am today, you realize that I am truly the minority of where I come from.
Yes.
And that is the big deal. I'm from the south side of Chicago, and the majority of the people I grew up with are truly, and this is not cliche, they're either dead, in jail, or still living on the same block that I left them at. Period. The majority of them. Very few of us actually got up and got away, but as I told Jeremy, I was in the fortunate position my father was home. And this is during the 70s, 80s when the crack era started to hit and just destroyed every family that you could find. So every family started out good, but once the drugs took effect, it ruined a lot of families. So it really ruined a lot of futures.
Yeah.
So we saw a whole lot of things going on back and forth. But also, too, when the crack era hit, policing changed. Because before the crack era hit, we used to know the cop that walked up and down your block. They used to walk a beat. After that, they said it was too dangerous to walk the beat. So what happened was when that guy walked the beat, he knew pretty much every kid, every parent on that block or in that area or in your school. But once the beat walking stopped and they just started to drive by, there was a disconnect. There was no personal feelings and everything. So therefore, if something bad were to happen, I didn't feel bad about jumping out and doing what I needed to do to bring law and order.
Wow.
And so I personally watched the neighborhood change from, oh, that's Officer so-and-so to don't trust the police.
Wow.
Don't talk to the police. Don't do any of that. And we watched the brutality go from here to there.
Yeah.
And it just never stopped climbing. It never had a dip. It always just kept getting worse and worse. And so, fortunately for me, I had sports. I had my father, and he managed to keep me away from a lot of that stuff. But I still had to go home. I still had to live there. I still had to manage even after all of the sports practices and everything that we did. My father was also a pastor.
That's why you have issues. Okay.
Yeah, I got major issues.
Yeah,
so.
my parents were church people too, so I'm just kidding. They're gonna watch this. They're like, what are you saying?
Exactly. Well, hey, look, it is what it is, right? So, but even with all of that, I still had to come back home, and I lived in that. So usually, when you see things popping off in Chicago, it's probably within a 3 to 5 mile radius of my front door. Okay, I didn't live very far from the area of the projects. I didn't, so it was just a lot of these things that went down. Further from the Cabrini Greens that you heard about, but there was some projects closer to me.
Yeah.
I was on the south side, Comiskey Park side.
So are you a White Sox fan?
I'm a hybrid. Don't get on me.
Okay.
Get on me. But anyway, so all of that transpired, and as me and Jeremy started to share these conversations, I mean, I looked in this man's face, and his eyes just was bugged out, and I'm like, no, man, this is the stuff I saw. This is what's happening, and this is why there's a big distrust in the community when it comes to policing. And so when Kaepernick, we're fast forwarding now to where Kaepernick was able to put himself in a position where he had a platform, at that point, I didn't care what he did. And that's just being honest, because I was just happy that he did something to bring this to the forefront.
Right.
And of course, he met the resistance of, you're a rich athlete, blah, 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 blah. And he was like, yeah, but that doesn't mean anything for the rest of my family, my cousins, my friends' kids. They still have to go home and live these things. I can't save everybody.
Right.
So he used this platform to bring notoriety to that. And I was very happy for it, because it did spark the conversation with some. Others to this day still don't want to hear it.
Yeah.
Because, again, it's easier to be purposely blind and live your little life.
Yeah.
As opposed to opening yourself up and try to get to know the difference between bad policing and why your privilege keeps you from ever experiencing it.
Yeah, and I remember the first time somebody said privilege to me, and I was offended. I'm like, hold on. I said, my family was poor. We didn't have much. Mm-hmm. I remember we never went out to eat. It was not what I would call anything privilege at all. Mm-hmm. And then we talked, and I understood kind of more of what that meant. We'll talk about that a little bit more in a moment. But I remember thinking when we talked about all this, Kaepernick doing his kneeling, I thought, okay, police brutality in this pocket, in that pocket, and in that pocket. And I realized after talking to you that these pockets are big.
Huge.
And it's not, and I thought there was a Facebook post, it must have been yesterday or today, and it was, tell the first time you had a gun pointed at you.
Pointed at you, yep.
And I went, I got to tell you, it made me sick for a second, because I went, well, what do you mean? And actually, our friend Tony Keeler posted, 46 still hasn't happened to me. Mm-hmm. And I went, I'm 46. I'm better looking than Tony, obviously.
Absolutely,
but 46 still hasn't happened to me. And our friends, the people that we work with, the guys like you, who I think, hey, you're like me, are going 16, 14, 18. One guy, 16, 4 times since then. Mm-hmm. And I'm looking at this guy going, I know that guy. He's never done anything wrong in his life.
Nope.
And it's stories like that I think have started to change it. And this is what I kind of came to the other day. So I think one of the things that happens especially for white people who are very disconnected from this, is it comes down to the fear, and not fear of knowing, because I think it's fear of making it worse. That's what I said to you guys. I go, I want to say something,
Right.
but I first of all don't want to be tone deaf. I don't want to say something that's completely off.
Right.
I don't want to make it worse. And listen, I feel bad. We'll talk a little later about some of the celebrities, the people who are trying to do something and just get ripped. I don't have enough followers to care much probably what I say, but
Right.
it's still enough of a fear. And I know my mom asked me a question yesterday. She goes, Jeremy, I don't know what to say. She goes, I'm angry, but I don't know what to say. I'm like, well, you don't have to say anything, Mom. Just because you're not saying something on social media, it doesn't mean you're completely silent. And I think that's that fear of, I want to learn this, but what do I then do in return? Do I just go out and hug every black person I see?
No.
Like,
That's not good. That's not good.
And I think there's some very well-intentioned people who are like, well, I'm going to change the world now. Hold on.
Right.
And part of it is, and a lot of the posts I've seen have been, I'm standing here and I'm listening. And I think that's as big a lesson as I've learned from any of this. Is just listen. You may not agree.
Right.
But listen. Listen and let people be heard instead of going, I don't want to know. Because it might mean I have to do something.
Right.
Or it might mean I have to say something. And that's going to make me very uncomfortable. And listen, even the little stuff I've done, I have a couple friends of mine, cops who are friends of mine, who are going, hey, remember, I'm a good cop. I'm like, whoa. I'm not saying anything about you at all. You are an amazing man. You're an amazing woman. This is not about that. This is about systematic wrong that's been done. And I have to say something. And it doesn't mean you and I are at odds.
Right.
We can talk about this and have a good conversation.
Well, I will give you my perspective on it. What I like and what I prefer is when I run up on people like yourself or anybody else in our department. Of course, we are the super minority. I mean, literally in numbers. So we're gonna to the point where when it's 3 of us at a station, we always take a picture. We always take a picture because it's like. It's a shock. Tell us staff messed up.
I do that every time there's 3 white people on a truck too.
So, but what I prefer is, yes, to listen as well, but to ask a question before judging.
Yes, that's good.
Because the TV has already infiltrated your brain and told you that black man is a criminal until he's proven innocent. That's what it's told you over your lifetime, over the years. Hispanic male, he's a lazy drunk. He's guilty already until he's proven innocent. And then when he is proven innocent, nothing comes across the TV. It might be a blurb at the bottom of a piece of newspaper somewhere. Yeah. Because it's not a priority, because these people have been subjugated for hundreds of years here in this country. So I prefer that Jeremy would ask questions, and that's what I told him even in his group text the other day. Hey, just ask questions. If it's something specific you want to know, ask it, as opposed to giving me a statement and then having me respond.
That's said way better than what I said. I see what you're saying there, because if you just go, I'm listening, it needs to be with a purpose. Right. It was interesting. I asked you guys the question. I said, hey, we had a lot of questions about how to respond, and one of the guys that I follow on my feed is Scott Williams. He's a pastor in Oklahoma City, a black man. And it was funny, right after I talked to you guys, he posted, and it was an Instagram post, and it said, all of my white friends are asking how to respond. He goes, here's a start. And it literally was just like 3 lines, and I went, I actually, he doesn't know who I am.
Right.
But I responded back, I said, thank you. Because that's you guys giving me some information. I was able to say, yeah, that's what I feel, and it's said the right way. But it's listening to, okay, if I ask you about growing up in Chicago and you start to tell me something, it gets uncomfortable. I can't go, oh.
Right.
Well, listen, Vince, I don't know that I want to hear about that.
Yeah. Well, I've had that happen to me. Because, again, people see me, but when they understand where I really come from and the things that I've really seen, the things that I've really endured, you can see how it changes their perspective of who they thought I was.
Yeah.
Because really he's closer to being like the rest of them than not. See, because we're in different classes. We're in different classes, see. So it's just like right now. I made a statement yesterday that, hey, these same people who are afraid of black people, if they were to see Oprah come down the block, They'd be begging and screaming for her to come inside and have a seat, Michael Jordan.
Is Oprah black?
No, she's a different one. She's different. So, Michael Jordan and these other people. But really, if you look at what that comes down to is that they have been on your television, they've been involved in your life so long, you feel like you know them.
Well, the last time we talked about this on the radio, there was another example we used, which we don't use anymore, and that's Bill Cosby.
Yeah. Well, but for what Bill did to help our generation will never be tainted.
Yeah.
All of that other stuff is a whole different animal, but what he did to help us during that era will never be duplicated.
Yeah.
And so that will go down in history for every black person you'll ever meet. It really did. And encouraged most of the kids from the 80s to the 90s and even into 2000, they'll tell you that the Cosby Show and A Different World is the reason they went to college, and the reason they also went to HBCU was purely because of that show.
Yeah.
So that'll never be duplicated.
And I remember you telling me back then, and I remember that was another one of those moments where I went, wait, what?
Yeah.
And you're like, Jeremy, what was your vision of black people on television? And I was like, well, Good Times.
Good Times.
The Jeffersons, Cosby Show, and A Different World. And that was pretty much it.
Half of that was buffoonery.
And you're
It
right.
was good entertainment, but it was buffoonery.
And I remember you telling me that, and I thought, wow, it never crossed my mind that that's how that became my filter. That became the screen through which I saw it. Yeah. And I think that's what I want people to understand is, we're talking to firefighters a lot in this show, but you're a first responder, you're a firefighter specifically. You're working with people who are different and who feel like they're in this class, that class, whatever, because we've done that. We've done that.
Right.
So stop looking at people like that. I guess is really one of the things I've learned is that I can't continue to see people like that. Does that make sense? And I don't know how to do that. And how do we teach that?
I got a great example for you.
Okay.
Speaking to the firefighters. All right. When you go to Fire Academy, your demographic probably looks something like 1 to 2 females. It could be black or white. 1 to 3 black males. 2 to 4 Hispanic males, and the rest of the class is going to be white males. That's the demographic.
About right.
Because what you've understood in your life coming into this game, you're already thinking, ooh, okay, the 23 white males, they could probably do this job they because they look like me. I can do it. They look like, but the preconceived notion that, not that you wanted to have, but what was given to you your whole life, you're thinking, that guy walks a little slow, he might be lazy. It's an inherent thought. It's something that you can't control. You literally have to deprogram your mind into going into this. Just like some men may look at the woman and say, oh, she's little, there's no way she's gonna pass. Yeah. But as you start going through the academy, what happens is that you have to rely on these people in order to accomplish your task. Yeah. So as you start to doing that, you start to get to know these people. Yeah. And then you start saying, hey, he's actually not so bad. She's a cool chick. It's not so bad. Da-da-da-da. And then by the end of there, when you're graduating, y'all hugging and kissing and slobbing all over each other like it's nobody's business. Yeah. I mean, it's a love affair. Yeah. But when you leave that academy and you go back outside and you get in your car, you go to the grocery store, those black people out there still have to reestablish with you what it took you 12 to 16 weeks to learn about those people. And that's where the problem comes, is when you're walking and you're a woman and you see that man and you clutch that bag and you do as you walk by, you're scared to death and you smell scared. And it's like, man, I've never done anything in my life. I've never gone to jail, never robbed nobody. Why are you afraid of me? Because of what the impression that's been taught to you your entire life. But that's where the problem comes. And so you literally have to work on that independently.
Yes.
You have to want to make that change. You have to want to say that because a guy got dreads, that he's not a criminal. That, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
You know how many white boys I hung out with in Delray Beach that got dreads? Smoked out every day. They've been in and out of jail.
By the way, the people who are listening on radio, I wish you could have seen. Can we describe the face you made?
Sure.
It was.
I'm bugged out, man. I'm going crazy because I can't believe. Because I use another example, and I love Wellington for this, by the way, because it happened to me. You're driving down Wellington, and you're going towards the horses. So if anybody knows Wellington, Florida, big money. Who's more likely to get stopped? a poor white guy in an old 25-year-old beat up F-150 or a well-dressed black man in a Bentley. Okay, you might think in that area it should be no, it's not the truth, because they're going to say that white guy in that truck is going to work somewhere. They're going to wonder how this black man, especially if he's well dressed, maybe have a dread or two in his head, even if he's just wearing a t-shirt, but he might have, whatever, maybe a gold tooth or something. They got to figure out what's going on with him. He's going to get the berries. They're going to pull him over, and they're going to ask him, put him through the ringer. Now, they may not beat him up and do all that, but they're going to put him through the ringer. While this other guy could have all kinds of illegal drugs, weapons, and all kinds of stuff going through here like that, because, again, it's the perception of, how did you get that car? Wow. We're going to find out how you got that car, and what are you doing over here? He's going to be like, I live right here. How many times have you seen that story? Where the cops pull into your neighborhood and be like, yeah, you fit the I live here.
And see, that's something that I before talking to you, that seems to me to be something that is just, oh, that's a story somebody tells. But then the more you and I talk about it, this is the reality. By the way, what are getting the berries? Is that the red lights? Yeah, the
red lights. Yeah. That's when the berries come flashing.
That is one I've never heard.
Yeah, the berries. Getting the berries? Flashing the berries. Yeah. See the berries flashing those high beams?
I've never heard that one. That's okay. I'm going to use that
it's
one.
A little ice cube. Don't worry about it.
See, I learned something every time we talk.
That's what we do, man. I'm here to educate. I'm here to educate. But it's funny. I have one of my for your police friends. I heard you mention the cops. And again, it's personal to me because my kids went to West Boca. So you have little Johnny, grew up in West Boca, affluent area over there, where everybody over there is pretty affluent, and the majority of them.
They've all retired from New York and moved down.
Came down big money, whatever. So it's a pretty much predominantly white area, and the people that are of other ethnic backgrounds generally have money. Yeah. So they might be considered in that other category, so keep that in mind. So you might play with them growing up or whatever here and there, but the majority of the people you're going to play with look like you. Yeah. You go to school with all these people, you may have one or two little others, but when you get to high school, man, okay, now you got a few more, because now with sports, especially in Palm Beach County, they recruit and they bring people from other areas. So now it's a few more Black, Haitian, Jamaican, Puerto Rican, Dominican that have come in, to that school, whether it be a magnet program to play sports, whatever the situation may be. But even then, it's a controlled environment. Yeah. Okay? So little Johnny goes through, plays sports. They're best buds. They hang out. They go to after parties. They do all this stuff together. But when little Johnny graduates, he decides, you know what, Mom and Dad, I appreciate you guys saving this $500,000 for me to go to college, but you know what? I'm going to go and be a police officer. So little Johnny applies for the police academy. He gets accepted. And he goes to the academy, and it takes about 8 months to become a sheriff or any police. Generally about eight weeks. Where it takes
8 months, right?
8 months. I'm sorry, 8 months. But it takes about 18 to 24 months to become a hairdresser, a barber, and a beautician. So anyway, so he goes through the academy, right? Got some others in his class. Get to know those guys, because you got to rely on them, right? Yeah. So those guys become different, just like we talked about in the fire academy. Yeah. You graduate. Johnny gets a gun, Johnny gets a badge, Johnny gets a cruiser. What do they send Johnny? They send Johnny to the Glades. He goes to Bell Glade on the 11 to 7 in the morning shift.
And if you don't know the Glades, just watch ESPN. What's that?
The Muck Bowl.
The Muck Bowl. But they talk. There's a 30 grade they just did. But anyway, it's a bunch of NFL players have come from there. Largely Black, Hispanic community out there.
Mostly Black. Yeah. But the thing about what over there is that's the high crime area. Yeah. And this is what's going on, because it's the most impoverished area. Yes. I mean, literally, first time I went over there, I literally thought those buildings were condemned until I saw people come walking out.
The unemployment rate's like 40% out there or something
insane.
Like that. Yeah.
It is absolutely insane. But anyway, he goes over there, and all of this is an example, by the way. So, but he goes over there, and traditionally, your on-duty sergeant or whoever the case may be, you got the rookie, you're telling them, hey, you better be on your P's and Q's, because they're all animals. They're all out here to get you. You better be on your P's and Q's. You better be watching your buddies back. But hey, they're all animals. They're going to get you. This is your first day. This is what you're having. So you already combine that with your preconceived notion growing up of what these people are like. And now, man, that guy got 2-foot-long dreads hanging out of his head. You know, and it's scary to you because it's something you're not used to seeing. And no, we got 5. And so with that happening, you're like, oh my God. So you're already hands on your trigger, hands on your butt of your gun, because now you got to impress your officers, right? You want to show them that you got their back. You want to put your print over here in your new area, so you're going to be tough, what you call tough. And really, you're really close to shooting somebody almost every time you pull somebody over. It's in the middle of the night. You're out here in the woods, in the jungle pretty much, and you're pulling over somebody that is in a car with loud music or whatever the case may be, and he doesn't look like you. He doesn't sound like you. He may not comply like you. He may be frustrated that you pulled him over, so he's not talking to you in a calm tone. We're emotional people, so we get a little loud. You know, so with all that happening, it's making you absolutely uncomfortable. You're over there by yourself. Backup is 10 minutes away. You got your hand on your gun.
Yeah.
This guy has done nothing to warrant you having your hand on your gun.
Yeah.
That distrust comes into play right there. But usually if he stays around there for a while, usually they say, hey, you know what, man? He's been in trouble, but man, that guy's not that bad a guy.
Yeah.
All you got to do is get to know the
Well, it's kind of like you said that. I thought your illustration at the beginning about walking the beat. That's a huge part of it. You know your community. I know even as firefighters, when we've been in a community for a while, you kind of get to know people that are at a grocery store, the people that we all know people at the grocery store. That's where we go all the time.
That's our house.
Yeah. The people at the gas station, the people that you're running calls into like an area all the time. We do get to know them. We get to know them by name. Even we have some of our homeless people. You know, like we all know that. Like, oh, that's crazy. That's Crazy Joe, right? And we all know that's the guy who. Now we would never call him that because that would be inappropriate. But we do that. I think that's a great illustration of kind of that difference. And once again, listen, I should have said this at the beginning. We're going to have a conversation, and there's going to be people who disagree with everything you say.
Absolutely.
There are going to be people who disagree with everything I say, and there's going to be people who disagree with everything we both say, and there's going to be some stuff that some people agree with. Every time you have this conversation, whether it's being recorded like we're doing right now, or whether it's just with your friends, or whether it's on social media, you're always going to have people who are going to critique it. So we understand that. But what we're trying to get you to understand is this is part of that conversation, just to go, man, I never thought about it like that before.
Right.
I never once thought about it in that vernacular. You used the illustration a while back about growing up in Chicago and the difference in how you were supposed to respond when you got pulled over, what'd you call it, driving while black.
Driving while black. And
it happened to you multiple times. And I have shared that story multiple times in my mental health class to talk about the differences that we face. And I've used your name. I've never asked your permission, by the way.
It's
but,
okay, sorry.
But even just that story reminds me of the fact that it's just different than I grew up. I remember getting pulled over probably 2 or 3 times in high school, specifically because I probably one time I rolled through a stop sign. I mean, barely rolled through in my defense, by the way. I remember getting pulled over for going, I'll never forget this, 34 and a 25.
Okay.
And I remember going, really?
Wow.
And getting a ticket, my first ticket. But I don't ever remember feeling nervous. I don't ever remember thinking, well, my dad told me I have to hold my hands here, or for you, I got to get out of the car and put my hands on the hood, or
Absolutely.
I never had any of those things happen because it's just different. And there are people who go, well, and they dismiss it offhand to go, well, that's a different story. Here's how people grew up. Here's how I grew up. They're different. And it's okay just to stop and go, let me acknowledge the difference. Let me acknowledge the fact that it must be very, very difficult for black parents to have to be able to have a conversation with their black son about how to respond when they are stopped. Like I honestly never once thought about it until you told me that back then. And I remember, because once again, Kaepernick started the conversation. And I remember talking to my parents and going, could you imagine having to have that conversation with me? And they were like, no, it never crossed my mind. And that's what we're trying to do, is we're trying to get people to understand, just stop long enough, get rid of all the preconceived notions, and just go, talk to me. Talk to me about what's different. Tell me what's different, and let me understand the differences.
I'm going to give you a firehouse story. So, being as though that I'm usually the only black guy in the firehouse in our department, which is fine, but I tell them a story. Whenever we get into the discussion, especially during the Kaepernick years, I really had to break it out, because I'm a jokester. I'm pretty much trying to keep it light. But I had to explain to them. I was like, okay, so you and I, we're approximately the same age. You got kids? Yeah, I got kids. Okay, your kids, boy and girl? Yeah. Okay, so when your son turns 16, you get him a car or he get his license? Yeah, he got his license. Okay. So when you gave him the keys to your car, what'd you tell him? Well, I told him to be very careful and drive where he got to go, obey the speed limit, and call me when he gets there. You know, and don't be late for your curfew. I said, man, that's really nice, but that's Disneyland. I said, that's Disneyland. He's like, what are you talking about? I said, you don't understand. I have to traumatize my child before I let them get in the car and drive away. I literally have to get in there and tell them how to survive the stop. Literally how to hurry up and get their license, registration, and insurance, everything, how to have their hands completely visible at all times. If they have a passenger in their car, how to tell everybody to shut the hell up because I got to be the only person speaking until you're spoken to. Have your license out if you're in my car. This is how we survive the stop. Roll all the windows down, turn all the music off, and sit there, and the only words is yes, sir, no, sir, yes, ma'am, no, ma'am. And you might have a good opportunity to survive that stop. If that officer does something bad to you, then let's survive the stop and we will file an official complaint later. Okay. Like you can't even be offended that you got pulled over. You can't be mad. You can't show any anger. You have to be cool. You can cry later. But survive the stop today. Now that trauma you put into your 16-year-old, they're not really looking to go out and have a great time that night because you just scared the absolute hell out of them.
Yeah.
And it changes the game where, you know, Becky's over here just having a great time with her girlfriends in the car. You know, Tyrone is over here just like, man, I don't even want to go.
Which one was black and white in that?
Yeah, we'll figure it
out.
Yeah. But that trauma is real. And that trauma becomes PTSD. And really what I did is I put my PTSD on my child to save their life.
Yeah.
That's deep.
That's deep. And once again, I want to make sure everybody understands, as we've talked about before, listen, do we think that every single cop is going to have that type of attitude? Not at all. I think the vast majority of them are great people.
Most of them.
Yeah.
I have several in my family, some of my very good friends.
I mean, my great friend who is, we're godparents for his daughters, he and his wife, and man, we are tight. We've had some great conversations. I prayed for him during this time. Like, hey, I pray for your safety during the response to this. We'll talk a little about that later about, during these protests and praying for his safety as he's coming home later and later every night. And the vast majority, but the same thing happens for us. We'll occasionally see a story about a firefighter that just does something stupid. Yeah. And you're like, you're giving all of us a bad name because you did this illegal thing, or you did that, or you mistreated a patient, or we've read stories about firefighters who haven't even followed their oath and taken care of the medical needs of a patient before.
Right.
We can't do this and go, hey, well, just because those 3 or 4 doesn't mean everybody else is, but it doesn't mean that everybody else is also good. You have to remember that there is that possibility.
Right.
And so you have to be aware of it. And so you, as a father of children who are black, have to look at things differently than I do. And that's really the point. Because other people are going to watch us go, whoa, he's saying all cops are horrible. No. We're not doing that. Not. And we want to make sure everybody understands that. We're trying to express to you that just like there are people who have responded and gone, I can't believe these people have looted that store. Right. All black people are looting stores. No,
that is not the case.
They're not doing that.
We will touch that. But the fact is that, as I said earlier in the preconceived notions from people growing up, how they are guilty until proven innocent.
Yes.
Well, that's the same way you have to I have to teach my son how to treat the officers, treat them with the utmost respect, but treat them like they might be having a bad day, or they might not be a great officer.
Yeah, it's possible.
So until they show, man, they're great people to you at that particular point in time, because I just want my 16-year-old to make it home.
Yeah.
I just want him to make it home. And from there, we can deal with it. And he's had some great encounters with police, in his tenure. He's 22 now.
Yeah.
But he's also had a bad one.
Yeah.
And the bad one is the only one he remembers.
Yeah, it's understandable.
Because it's traumatic. It leaves you in a traumatic situation. So, but, I have very good friends as cops. I literally hang out with cops almost every day.
Well, They're good to hang out with.
Yeah.
They keep you out of trouble. They keep me out of trouble all the time.
At least keep you abreast of the law. But they're my great friends, and we talk all the time. And you know, but I tell you what, there is a difference between having, you know, just like firefighters, we're supposed to represent our community.
Yeah.
You know, the officers that I know that work in the areas in which they grew up or area they're very, very familiar with, their level of calm is unparalleled.
Yeah,
like literally, they can walk into a super violent situation and calm everything down in like 30 seconds and never really raise his voice.
Yeah. It's amazing.
Because he's established the respect level with these people.
Yeah.
And they respect him back. And vice versa. But when you're the new person going in there and getting it done. I had a conversation at the firehouse yesterday about the very same thing about, they were saying, well, the only way we can make this better is if we put multiple police in the car. I said, well, that's probably not going to happen because of whatever particular budget situation, especially in Florida, they like to ride, they do the solo thing. But here's where we have an advantage, because I've been on several calls with captains, lieutenants, other firefighters, even higher level captains that came in there and did not treat a patient right.
Yeah, exactly.
And I can walk over to you and be like, hey, you left something in the truck. And they're like, what?
No, I did.
You left something in the truck. And if you don't leave, I take you out. Because I'm not going to go through all of this paperwork because you're having a bad day.
Yes, exactly.
Well, when you're riding solo as an officer and you're having a bad day, who pulls you off?
Yeah. But I think the other thing that happens too is, even in this particular instance with George Floyd, it was so sad to watch because you have one person doing something horrible and three other people defending, not just not stopping it, but defending it. And I think we've talked about that before, where actually my buddy, I was just talking about the police officer, I asked him, I said, what fixes that situation? And we went through a whole conversation about what fixes it. But one of the things he pointed out was, he goes, take everything else out of it. He goes, if you just had somebody out of those four who was willing to say, this isn't right, or I'm willing to step up, and he goes, listen, he goes, I'm the guy who does that now with his group, and he goes, there are times where I get burned for that.
Absolutely.
Because people do, and he said, he goes, there's been 2 or 3 times where it hasn't even been race related. It's just mistreating someone. He's like, hey,
having a bad day.
Hey, I don't care that guy's a drug addict.
Right.
Just back up. And so he goes, that is hard to do.
Because he broke the blue line.
Yes, and that's very, very hard to do. But we see the same thing on ours, where it's easy. We've had people, not just in our department, but other departments, who literally have not been able to work in this career anymore because they've stepped over the line too many times, and nobody said, hey. Yeah. Nobody said, hey, you left something on the truck. Right. You know, that's what we're trying to get people to understand, is if you can change your thinking internally and change the way you look at things, that's the step. That's a step in the right direction.
Step. Well, I was the late baby, so my parents were older when I was an adult. So it made my compassion a lot different in this business. Okay. So when I came out and I came to older battalions and running these older people calls, it was easier for me to treat them like my parents, or what you would want your grandparents to be treated at. You know, they used to say, man, I was the old people whisperer because they love me. You know, they come in, oh, they love your voice, and they want, you know, big guy, whatever. But the reality was, I just was nice to them. And, you know, even if I was being cynical, they didn't catch it. I was being nice to them regardless, and I would touch them, make them happy, and all of this good stuff. But all it would take is that one guy to come in there. He's floating in from a different battalion, probably the hero battalion. We ain't going to talk about it, but he come in or whatever, but he's like, this is a worthless call to him. Yeah. And I'm like, well, this is how we get paid. So if we got to go, we might as well have a great day about it. Yeah. And let's go and enjoy it and get it done. The faster we get in, the faster we get out. If we got to get them transported, let's get it done. Yeah. Whatever the case may be. Now, we can get in the truck and we can talk trash later. Yeah. But in the meanwhile, just like I told the kid to survive the stop, let's get done with this call. Yeah. And we don't have to treat these people bad. Yeah. And when that lady gets her little $10 and she sends it over to the station, you like, man, that's really nice. Because you don't know how you affected this person.
That's for sure. Well, let me ask you a question. So how do we as the fire service in particular, how do we have constructive, profitable, positive conversations about this topic at the firehouse? Because the reality is, it's come up. I mean, you and I were talking actually in that group, in that group text. One of the young guys He's got about a year on the job. He goes, and he goes, can I ask a question? You go. Because he's a little nervous, and he goes, and he goes, how do I handle this? Because they're asking me. And he's one of our guys who's like, what, 6'4",
Yeah,
6'5",
big boy.
big dude.
Yeah.
Teddy bear. But he's super soft and nice and calm. And so here's this big black man who's basically a teddy bear, and they're asking him what he thinks, and he goes, I don't really know how to respond. So how first of all, from both perspectives, how do we handle it? How do we start the conversation? Do we talk about it? I'd like for you to kind of share that, because I think that's one of the fears of especially white firefighters.
I love it.
Is they go, okay, do I bring this up? If it comes up, do I run to the bathroom?
Right.
Do I just walk up and go, hey, it's good. What do I do? So kind of have a conversation about that.
I love it. So here's partly what I told him and partly what I recommend. As I said minutes ago, when you ask questions, it opens up the conversation. When you start it with a statement or an opinion, you're going to get a defensive response. So if it's like, hey, when you don't understand something, it's better to ask the questions so you can form an opinion.
Okay.
And so, just like with the looter situation, and I have gotten so fed up with people saying those protesters are looting, and I'm like, no, they're not.
Two different things.
Two completely different things. You got those people that are opportunists coming out there, but the peaceful protesters are still peacefully protesting.
Yeah.
Don't lump everybody into the same category.
For sure.
So when you start asking questions and you start identifying, wait a minute, that group is all you had to do was ask.
Yeah.
So when you ask a tough question to me, I have absolutely no problem explaining it to you. As a matter of fact, I want to explain it to you because I want you to get to know who I am. I want you to get to know more about me. Because the fact is, especially in the fire service, the black people, the brown people have to assimilate into the white world. We have to assimilate into the white world in almost every place and everything we do in life. Everything. You want to go to a nice restaurant? It's not in your neighborhood. You have to go out there and go into this predominantly white neighborhood and go and have a decent meal if you want that particular restaurant, because they don't build it where you live. So, in all of these, so we've been used to assimilating.
Right.
We've been used to being the one of two, the one of three. We're used to that. Mm-hmm. These people are not, because that's not what your privilege has provided you. You've been comfortable wherever you want it to be. Mm-hmm. So ask the questions, and when you do that, usually the conversation goes so much better. Then when you form your opinion, we're not asking you to ask the questions so you can agree.
Right. That is key. People are like, well, I asked a question and then I don't agree with what he told me. Okay.
That's fine.
That's okay.
That's fine.
You and I don't agree on everything.
We don't agree on
politically,
everything.
Religiously, we have some things I mean, the Chiefs are good, the Bears suck.
Watch your mouth. It's facts, but watch your mouth. Anybody want to buy Trubisky for $2? I'm giving them away.
Kansas City, and it's not. I'm not a bandwagon.
Yeah.
I've been, all my life. So, no, I think that we are. That's one of the things that I've come across a lot over the last couple of weeks here is a lot of the friends I have who are asking the question like, "Hey, I noticed you posted this. Mm-hmm. I want to talk about this too, but I don't agree with the person." I'm like, "You don't have to agree with them. It's not. You don't. We can have difference of opinions.
Right.
Now, we need to get along." We need to be agreeable,
right?
But we don't have to agree on every single. What did my friends say? Agree to disagree.
Agree to disagree.
Like it's okay.
That's what we do. We're gonna agree to disagree, and that's how we're gonna leave it because it's the safest way.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you have to be able to try to put yourself in my position, and I'm just speaking for me. When we're looking at black man unarmed, black man unarmed, black man unarmed, get killed, and watch the officers walk away. Repeatedly. And then you have a Dylan Roof who walks into this church and shoots 9 people, kills 9 people, wounds many more, and they give him Wendy's. The officers not only take him alive, but they feed him on his way to jail.
I never heard that story.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, he was hungry. They took him to Wendy's and bought him some food. Among some other things, a lot of these situations where they don't end up dead. They don't even end up injured. Okay, you got to understand how that would make you feel, especially watching it over and over and over again. I got no issue with a human being, and police officers are just that. They are human beings. We got 5. Police officers are human beings. I got no problem with you having a bad day.
Yeah.
But I do think that if you have a bad day and you get a bad shoot, you should go to jail.
Yeah.
There's no way in this particular situation that we're dealing with right now that if me and Jeremy was to go out in the bar right now and go have a fight and they decide that we're the culprits, they're going to arrest us right then, right?
Yeah.
They're going to arrest us on the spot. They're not going to wait 4 days and then a week like they did with these officers. You're going to arrest you right there and hold you and then check it out, see what's going to stick and what's not going to stick. If it doesn't stick, they let you go and they say, we're sorry. Other than that, they're going to hold you until they can get some charges on you, then put a bail on you if you qualify. This is what makes us angry, is that we got to watch this time and time again and then watch them get off. Watch them get off. There's been very few officers that's been charged. And when they do get charged, mostly it's a slap on the wrist. Amber Geiger got 10 years for killing this man in his own apartment. 10 years, which means she's probably going to be out in 5. For murder. It should have been murder. Nah. 10 years. That's it. You're hard-pressed to find many more. The one guy who shot the guy, Walter Scott, he did get 20 years because they saw that he planted evidence to try to build the scene. Caught him on film. That's the only reason he got 20 years, in my opinion. Everybody else gets a slap on the wrist. Van Dyke in Chicago lit that kid, Laquan McDaniel, I think his name is, lit him up. 6 years. He'll be out in 3, maybe 2.5. How are we supposed to have faith in that system? I'm a fireman now. I have to come back into our station and function like I'm not mad when I am piping hot. But I can't bring my problems into my crew. I don't want to bring a bad day. So when you come and give me an opinion, instead of asking me a question, you're going to get the real deal because I'm not holding back. Yeah. And then I become what? The angry black man.
Well, and I think you hit another good point there too, is don't try to argue with people who already have their mind made up. Because if someone wants to talk to you, and I've said this before, if a black man wants to talk to me about his differences and our differences and what we've learned, I'm in. But if he's trying to convince me of something I don't understand, why are we having the conversation?
Right.
If we both make our minds up,
right.
You and I never would have gotten here if we both went, I'm from inner city Chicago, here's what I dealt with, and I'm like, I'm from White World. That's what I joked with you the last time. Yeah. Middle of Kansas is where my family's from. I'm from Missouri, where it was basically almost all white where I was. Yeah. So if we both went, well, that's our perspective, and I'm not going to listen to anybody else. Well, then you miss the opportunity to learn anything. So I'm going to tell you right now, if you're dealing with someone who is not listening to you or is not hearing you, don't try to convince them. That's not the purpose.
It's not the way to do it.
There's no sense in trying to. What are the Bible says, don't throw your pearls before swine. And the idea is don't, and just, if somebody's not listening to you and they have no desire, don't waste your rubies on them, is basically the idea. Don't waste your jewels.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, is don't waste your breath on the people who aren't willing to listen. But if we can start dialogue that says, hey, my mom called me yesterday. It goes, okay, Jeremy. Blackout Tuesday, what is it? I'm like, well, Mom, you could look it up. And she goes, just tell me. So I went and found it, and I showed her this what it was, and I said, hey, this is what it is. And she said to me, she goes, I'm learning so much. I'm like, I'm proud of you, Mom. I'm proud of you that you're learning so much.
That she wanted to learn.
Yeah. So she remember, she moved from Kansas City to D.C. So she went from, and I say Kansas City, like outskirts suburb, like I said, mostly white.
Met her at the ball game, by the way.
Yeah, that's right. Forgot about that. To D.C. I mean, so she works and lives in a very different world now than she did before. So she's learning. She goes, okay, how do I learn from the people that are different than me? Listen, I got to tell you, I'm proud of my almost 70-year-old, she's going to kill me for saying almost 70, almost 70-year-old mom who's willing to do that. And that's what we need more of. We need more of people who are willing to go, what's different? What do I need to learn? So earlier we talked about celebrities, some of these people. If you're in the public, court of public opinion, you're a public face basically, and you're a famous person, you are expected in times like this to do something, to say something. The Knicks owner's just getting tore up right now because he didn't say anything. I think they were going down the line and they're like, there's only one NBA team that hasn't commented, and whatever. So it's a little more pressure than it is for the rest of us probably. But I was noticing, I mentioned Chiefs fan, big Mahomes fan, obviously. You guys could have had him. You took Trubisky. We talked about that earlier.
Okay.
But he hadn't said anything initially, and he waited a few days. It was about a week, and then he posted it. And I thought the post was really well thought out, really well written, and just kind of really gave what his thoughts were. Mm-hmm. And it basically, I'm not going to quote it, but it basically said, it basically was one of those things where it said, hey, I grew up with a black father, a white mother, and he goes, I'm blessed that I was always accepted everywhere I was. That was kind of his first phrase.
Right.
The second part was, I grew up in locker rooms with athletes and, people, and he said, I didn't care what creed, color, whatever, and he said, I want that for it, and I think it was his younger sister, and then when he has kids one day, I want that. And I read it, and I went, way to go, Pat. Like,
right.
Not only are you an athlete who's a favorite of mine, he has been loved in Kansas City. People love how he treats the other people there. I mean, he's a great dude. Mm-hmm. He seems pretty, he's confident, but he's humble. And right. I'm just like, wow. And I looked, and literally underneath the first comment I saw, and it wasn't the first comment, but it's one I happened to see was, oh yeah? Well, you privileged athlete. Of course you got, and I went, yeah. What, the guy, whoa. And then the second one was, well, what about, is this you? And it was a screenshot. And I don't know, I didn't verify it was him or anything. I wasn't that into it. But it was a screenshot of a comment he made around the time that Trayvon Martin was killed, and another screenshot about something else. Mm-hmm. And it was basically, oh, was this you? And I don't even remember what it said, but I remember. But then the next comment underneath that responding back was, he was 14, and he was 16. And I thought, first of all, I'm glad there was no social media when I was 14 or 16, because there would be stuff that I put on there. I guarantee you that would have been stuff that I wouldn't even know was racist that I would have put on there.
Of course.
Guaranteed.
Of course.
And we'd hammer these guys because they're young and just stupid. Mm-hmm. But I thought, that's a guy who's willing to step out, and he's taking it, and he's got to have thicker skin than us, but we have to have this thick skin too to go, I'm willing to do this. I'm willing to make a statement, whether it be on social media, whether it be with our friends, whatever. I'm going to step up and say something that I believe is right. Not for a reaction, but something that's right. And you're going to have people who are going to try to hammer you for it.
Unfortunately, we in this country put so much responsibility on entertainers and athletes.
Yes.
I think that's absolutely insane.
Yeah.
But it is what it is, and so therefore, life imitates art. We try to, at least. We do our best to imitate art. So with that situation, I'll give it to you, and we'll take it. Maybe I can make it a little extreme, and you can see where it comes from. In most inner cities where you have a predominantly black neighborhood, I was called white boy my whole life because I had light skin with curly hair.
Oh, you were a beautiful boy, weren't you?
It was the racism,
curly hair,
racism within the race.
Wow.
Because this has been taught from slavery years.
Wow.
That the lighter you were, the more acceptable you were.
When I was in India on my missions trip about 2 years ago, I have an Indian friend who was there with me, and he said the exact same thing. They actually had cream to make their skin
lighten the skin. Wow. It's in Jamaica right now. It's horrible in Jamaica.
Amazing.
Maybe they're scrubbing their skin right now. It's insane.
Crazy.
But so even growing up in the neighborhood, this is what I had to endure. Huh. And so you have racism within the race. And then, so you get treated this way. You're the light-skinned black. You're the white boy of the black neighborhood. And then you go around white folks, and then the black kid. You're like, wait a minute, what am I? Okay? And when I moved down to Florida, forget about it. I was every Spanish ethnicity you could come up with. And so,
you got the Spanish.
Spanish thing. Awesome. I've got Dominican. I got it all. So, but also too, I can tell you that even with that, there was a little privilege for me. When I was 8 years old, I went with a friend, one of my dad's members' schools, to the Bozo show. It was filmed in Chicago.
Okay.
And
Bozo the Clown.
Bozo the Clown.
Okay.
And we're in line waiting to go and to get in. And so the producers were coming down there picking kids. I literally was the only light-skinned black kid in that line. And the whole group where we had 2 bus loads. That producer looked over there and walked in between, and she asked me, did I want to go on stage? God's honest truth.
It was because of your beautiful curly hair,
I get it. It was a big curl, and it was huge. I had massive hair. But I'm just saying at that point, now I'm the visitor to this school.
Wow.
And now I got to ride back.
Oh, wow.
With these kids. Oh, it was torture.
Was it worth it?
Oh, I had a great time. Of course, I made my TV debut on the Bozo Show. You kidding me?
And you've been on many shows since then.
Yeah,
I've seen you.
couldn't tell me nothing. But it was still torture at that point because I was just a kid. I wanted to be accepted with these other kids.
Yeah.
And so now I was accepted on stage, but now I got to go back and now watch these other kids be angry at me and jealous because of that. But that is real. So he has had to endure that being a biracial athlete coming up.
Yeah.
And not only was he was very good, so he didn't catch a whole lot of flack, but behind his back, it was a lot.
Oh, yeah.
And especially those that had jealousy for what he could do, they probably felt like, well, I'm as good as he is, but he's got the opportunity because.
Yeah.
That has been ingrained in our DNA since the days of slavery. Again, ever since, Massa would, step out back and come back, and now you got this mulatto child. That child got treated better. And that's been the mentality ever since. So it's a shame. But again, once we understand the root cause of a lot of this stuff, we know where it comes from, it becomes a whole heck of a lot easier to deal with.
Yeah, and I think as white individuals, you hear that term, you hear somebody say the word slavery, a black person, and you go, oh, I don't want to talk about that.
Yeah, get over it.
Because that's the initial response is, well, that was 160 years ago.
Yeah.
I'm doing my math in my head here.
I see you.
I'm really, it's happening right now. Well, that was the Civil War. That was, and you just don't want to talk about it. But then that's the problem is, then you don't want to talk about anything. And I thought, kind of moving on to that kind of next topic, and I may be going ahead so we can move back if we need to. But we talked about, somebody posted the other day on Facebook, and it was a picture of a looter burning something down, and it says, don't protest like this. And then it was Martin Luther King walking, and it was don't protest like this. And it was a list of all the different, and one of them was Kaepernick.
Yeah.
And I thought, that's been me before. I mean, that has totally been me where I've gone, that makes me uncomfortable. Well, that's the whole purpose of a protest, is to make you uncomfortable.
That's what
and I
it
don't
is.
know, you've been down here in Florida for how long?
Almost 30 years.
Okay, so back in the mid-'90s, Elian Gonzalez. Remember
Absolutely.
when,
my God.
Do you remember when, and a lot of people, there was the little Cuban boy who, I don't even remember all the details, but remember, basically they wanted to get him back to Cuba.
Right, his mom brought him to the States. And
then did she pass away or something like that? Or?
I don't remember exactly what happened, but I know the dad wanted him back.
So I remember that there were like 4 or 5 tractor, I don't know why this sticks out in my head, but I just moved down here. There were 4 or 5 tractor trailers going on 95 that got next to each other and then slowed down and then just stopped. You remember that?
Yeah.
Just stopped traffic. And I remember thinking, well, that's inconvenient. Well, that's what a protest is.
That's what a protest
is. Like everybody's going, well, why are they stopped? Well, it's what a protest is. And you look at the pictures of Martin Luther King and what he did and how he would just walk arm in arm and there's just kind of block traffic, whatever you need to do. The purpose was to get people to listen. And obviously not, you said it earlier, great. Looting does not equal protesting. Those are very, very different things. But people who are peacefully protesting, there's a purpose for it. Instead of us going, how dare an individual do that? Well, why are they protesting? What are they protesting? What's the conversation that I can have as a result of it? And one of the best things that came out of it was, I put something about, don't let me be, I don't remember exactly what, something like, don't let me be someone who says, I don't see color. Instead, let me be someone who, did you write that down?
What did I say?
Oh, good,
I don't see
good.
color.
So yeah, it was don't let me be someone who says that, but instead let me see that and learn. Well, here's the best part. My mom saw that, and she goes, Jeremy, I've always thought that was a good thing to say that. So she goes, I've always thought it was good to say I don't see color. I'm like, she goes, but it's never made sense to me. I go, and we had a great conversation. My mom and I talked about 30 minutes yesterday morning about this, and she goes, I understand it now. We talked. I go, the idea is, it's asinine to say you don't see it. Because you do. There's just no way around it. There's no way for me to look at them and go, oh, see the difference and then understand what the difference is. That's really what this is about.
That's it.
And I thought that's another example of a conversation with my mom who, I'm giving my mom a lot of credit on here.
Yeah.
But it's another conversation with someone who grew up in a very different generation who sees and goes, oh, that makes more sense. And once again, education, learning. All of this is coming because of conversations taking place. And I thought Bomani Jones hit it dead on the head this yesterday morning on ESPN, and he goes, we don't have sports as an escape right now. We don't have movie theaters as an escape right now. We don't have any of that stuff. So we have to sit and go, oh,
yeah,
this is ugly. I got to sit in this and talk about it. Because I believe that has been probably the most significant portion of this.
I agree.
There's no restaurants to go to. Someplace.
Yeah.
You have to talk about this. It's just, it's kind of that perfect storm. But the other thing you said was this, and I want you to talk about this too. he said, he goes, for him, and Amani's probably about our age, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
He's not as attractive as we are.
Not quite. No.
He's got a great shoe selection, though. His shoe selection.
His
shoe
game
collection.
is tight.
Oh,
Shoe game
man.
is tight.
Awesome. But he made the comment, he said, this is the first time that he can ever remember that white people are as outraged as black people about this inequality, this injustice, all these. And I just went, oh, he's right.
You know why? You know why I think that's the case?
Tell me why.
Oh boy.
How much time do we have?
I'm
just kidding.
What I think is that the difference in this case than any other case that you've seen on video is how fast does it take to shoot somebody? Pow, pow, pow. He's down. It's over. Huh. You watched for 9 minutes this man literally sit on the back of his neck while people were begging him to get off. You literally saw the lack of empathy for this man's life in this cop's eyes as he sat there with his ego just swollen out of control. That's why these people are so out of control, angry with him right now, and so outwardly expressive, is because they've never seen that. It takes nothing to pull a trigger.
That's a great point. I never thought about that.
I thought about it day one when it was happening.
You're smarter than me. So
I'm just a little, my hue is a little different. And so my background is different. But the thinking is that's why the white people are so angry. They literally watched this man choke him for 9 minutes. Watch this man beg for his dead mother. Mama dead. He calling for her. So did he see her? Or was he on his way? But that's why everybody has this outrage.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about it like that. Yeah. In fact, the young man who I talked to that one day that I made him feel very uncomfortable and said, hey, you don't know me, but tell me this, and it works with us. He made that comment. He goes, because I hadn't watched it yet. Mm-hmm. And he goes, I think you need to watch it. I said, so I did, and I found myself, maybe this sounds too dramatic, but I found myself with tears in my eyes.
No, that's not too dramatic.
Angry, but sad and angry. Like I don't know that I've ever had that type of emotion where I'm sad for what I'm seeing and I'm angry for what I'm seeing, and I'm watching that. First of all, I'm hearing the dude who keeps going, "You're a bum." Like that was the word he kept using.
Yeah.
And then the female who was the first responder or something who was like, "Show me a pulse."
Right.
Those two things kept coming, and I just kept going. I kept going. Come on! Like, even though I know what happened, I'm waiting for someone to do it. Instead of and it just grew that anger within to go, and then I stopped and I went, okay, what did this guy do? And then I find out he used a counterfeit $20 bill or whatever, and I'm going,
maybe,
wow. But then my thought was, wait, why am I even looking at that? Because it really doesn't matter. And that was what it came back to for me. I found myself looking and going, well, what happened? Did it just? And I went, wait. And I think that's my problem is I've always been the person to go, well, what happened, was it justified because of, well, it doesn't matter.
It does not matter.
And I think that's where we have to get to is to go, Brandon, who called me, actually, he was on our text, but he was busy. He called me and he goes, Jeremy, this is a race issue. He goes, but this is humanity. Mm-hmm. This is a human who doesn't care about another human's life.
Not in the
least. And he goes, that's really what you have to come back to is to go, that's really the basis. There's all kinds of other things here, but that is the big part of this, just to go, if you don't see that, and I guess this is my message for people, and you can disagree with me if you want, but if you don't see that and watch that 8.5, 9-minute video and ache and hurt and get angry about wrong being done, then I don't think that this video or anything else is probably going to help, because there's something that should be within each of us that says, it's not okay. It's not right. My pastor talks about we have to take care of the least of these. The verse talks about, and as much as you've done the least of these, you've done it unto me, is what God says. Well, I guess Jesus says it, but either way. And I think that what I find is that if we're not even willing to look at a person on their stomach with nowhere to go, and that happens to them, and it doesn't draw us to go, I ache for that, then there's something wrong internally. And we can never talk about race or anything else at that point because it really doesn't matter.
Right.
And that's what I kept coming back to for me. And I don't know if that's right or not, but that's just kept
absolutely right. But what you said is that you didn't know whether you were hurt or angry.
Oh, I was both.
But that's every situation that you see with these names. I was hurt and angry. You so hurt.
Yeah.
that you just, even when you're crying with anger.
Yeah.
Because it's senseless. It's useless. I've known Trayvon Martin since that kid was in kindergarten. He was in my after-school care program. I had that boy from kindergarten through the 4th grade. He was a hyper little kid. He was a busy boy and everything. Great kid. You know, he was all of that to me. And for me to not to see him for several years, and the next time I hear from him, he's actually in the same grade as my daughter, my oldest. And I get to hear this audio of him getting shot and killed. Everybody else heard a 17-year-old. I heard this little 9-year-old kid. Because that's the kid I knew. I knew his parents. They were great, come up picking him up. You know, they probably had the best separated parenting thing I've ever seen. They were great parents. And he was a great little kid that literally just got profiled into his death. He got profiled into his death. There's nothing else we can say about that. So you're talking about being angry and hurt, where you're crying and then you're cussing and you don't know what to do because there's really nothing you can do. And then to see it happen over and over and over again, and then the TV plays it over and over and over again, it makes you numb to it, almost to the point where it's desensitized for America to watch a black man get shot and killed in the streets by the police. It's almost desensitizing. And you don't know whether to be hurt or angry. Because you really can't be both at the same time. You got to take turns. 2 totally different emotions.
Yeah.
And this happens so much. The list is this long for those that walk away with no punishment. At least give us some punishment.
Yeah.
It might help the healing a little bit.
Well, let me ask you that on this, as we talk about this now, because this is one of the questions that I have from a lot of friends on both sides of this, I shouldn't say both sides of it, who come from all different backgrounds, I guess is what I'm saying. And the question comes, what is next in this? I mean, because as you did our breaking news of the 3 people that got arrested, I didn't know until we got on the news. Yeah, that was nicely done, by the way. So what happens as this trial goes forward so let's say justice is done? Because as you said, very rarely charged, very rarely. This may be the different situation we're waiting to see. Okay, so let's say, best case scenario, everything happens like it's supposed to. They're found guilty of what they're supposed to be found guilty of, and they are punished. What's the response? What do you believe the response will be? Do you think it'll be a finally, or do you think it's going to be what's next?
I think it's going to be what's next.
That's what I feel, but I wasn't sure.
What do we say in the fire service? How many attaboys does it take to wipe out one bad boy?
How many? What is it? How many
attaboys does it take to wipe out one mistake?
Yeah.
You know, because that, when you look at the percentage, you're not going to the Baseball Hall of Fame.
Right.
Because you still got an overwhelming number of people that walked away with nothing. And then we might get one, it might be the celebration, it might be the equivalent to the OJ celebration. During the OJ trial, it wasn't that anybody in the world really, I don't want to say cared, but we have been seeing so much injustice in the court system that, guilty or not, everybody was so excited, including me, that this man was found innocent. Because I don't think I'd ever seen that, and this is being 100% honest, in my life at that point. This is 1994. I'd never seen anything like that. I never heard of a black man going into court for killing 2 white people, including a blonde-haired, blue-eyed white woman, which is, you can't do that. And then walk out of that courtroom free. Oh, it was a celebration.
And I remember being upset about that at that time, because I'm like, I didn't care about the race at all. I just went, there's no way that guy didn't kill that lady. And I remember, actually, that was another ESPN 30 for 30.
Absolutely.
It changed my perspective. I went, wow. It was really about just finally seeing someone. And they actually made the comment, although it wasn't completely one of us.
Right.
The lady said that. She goes, it wasn't completely.
Yeah.
Because he was that class you were just talking about.
He was that class.
But it gave that hope. And I remember that was one of the first times that I went, that was after you and I talked, and it helped me see that 30 for 30 a little differently because you and I talked. Because I went, oh, well, let me stop my judgment of what I think about what this woman just said.
Right.
Because I want justice,
Right.
regardless. I just think justice is the right thing. But it wasn't about that. It was about the emotions that came from all of the history leading up to that, and I had to stop and go, okay, I don't agree with it, but I get it. I understand it. I understand why you feel that way.
That's all we want.
And it
Just
was
understand.
that's a great analogy because I hadn't really thought about it like that until then.
Literally, just understand when you are a perpetual loser.
Yeah.
Listen, I don't care what nobody says about this. Y'all can hate this comment all you want to.
We'll edit it out if we don't like it. Go ahead.
The prisons are absolutely jam-packed with innocent black men, brown men. In the cases where it needed to close fast, I'd say probably a good 30% of those weren't even in the area. But they needed the case to close fast. You didn't have enough money to put up a good enough defense. You fit the description. Hey, what's the use? You go, he go. Don't matter. We got him. The case closed. I'm a prosecutor. I get to move up. That's all that matters. As opposed to trying to finding the truth. One of my good friends was like, man, I went to court with a public defender, and the man got up there and didn't even know my name. But he was going to defend me from going to prison. How much time you think he got? Every minute that the judge could throw at him. Because he had no defense. You know, again, so the justice system is not broken. It's working exactly the way it was designed to work. 100%. But it has to be changed. But the only way it can be changed is it's a systemic situation. Whereas you got to get where the DAs and these judges are, when you recognize that they're not voting and doing the things and ruling the way you decide is fair, you have to band together and either vote them out and then find somebody else that's not afraid to cross over the thin blue line, because they need the endorsement of these law enforcement agencies. They are the biggest ones in the country. But you got to have somebody to brave enough to do the right thing versus doing what's right for your career. And that's what happened, because these prosecutors, they're trying to move up. They're not trying to sit right there. So they're just trying to build up a great enough record to move. So really, if they got to sacrifice a few of these people, so what? Central Park 5. Central Park 5. Okay? That prosecutor just threw these kids away. Nothing about the evidence said that they even had anything to do with it. But they fit the bill. It was great. They made a big headline. They got and sent those kids to prison. Exonerated them between 5 and 15 years later, after the guy finally confessed and the DNA evidence backed it up. But they didn't care. It was just closed case. Let's move forward. Because the value of a black life, it just don't mean as much. So take that all the way back to your Constitution, where we may have been amended, but that Constitution say that I'm 3/5 of a human being.
One of my buddies posted, yeah, you say we're equal and our forefathers, and he goes, et cetera, and then he finished by saying, but based on what they said, I would only be 3/5 of one of your friends. And I went, and I had to stop and look at it again. I went, wait. And my dad was my history teacher. He taught us about a lot of this stuff. And I remember going, oh yeah, but if you have to put it in perspective as a Facebook friend, kind of made me laugh, because I went, wow. Yeah. Kind of, it's interesting how you start to look at things differently. And I'll tell you, the other, you made another comment that made me think of something I was getting ready to go to. You were talking about the fact, I'm going to get this right. You were just, what were you saying, man?
Which part?
I don't remember now. I'm blanking.
Okay. It's okay.
Okay, we'll come back to it, because there's something that you said that I really want to jump at, but I can't remember. So.
But even with that, you got to look at just to finish on that point of not being looked upon as such. That's got to be from the next mother that's having a child. How is she going to start to teach this lesson to her babies? How is she going to start teaching her white children how to see the color? Because you can't not see color. Yeah. and say, hey, these people have different ethnic backgrounds. These people may have different religious backgrounds, but they're no different than you and I. When their skin cuts, they bleed. These things are real. They have human feelings and everything. They may walk and talk and act differently, but they're just like you and I. It's going to take that from, the mothers teaching these babies in order to change. That's the only thing I can see, and then communities finally banding together. And, I give you a good one. Most people are afraid, even in the black community. They're like, oh, pull yourself up by your bootstraps. Well, I ain't got no bootstraps. But when the Black Wall Street in Tulsa, Oklahoma pulled themselves up and pulled together, what happened? They bombed them. They blew them out. So now you start all over again. So first you tell me to pull myself up, I do it, and then you take it away. We're forgiving because we're gonna just migrate right back into your area. We're gonna migrate right back into your area because we have been taught that coming into your area makes us successful. If I can move out of the black neighborhood and move over here where you are, where I'm the one house over here, I'm successful. That's a horrible, horrible way to think. It really is. I remember begging my father as a kid to move out of the house we grew up in. Begged him. Because my uncle was building this big, beautiful home in the suburbs. I begged my father, oh, Dad, can we go? He said, what am I going to go out there for? He said, I own this.
Yeah.
I own this. This is my house. We own this house. I'm not going anywhere. And I'm like, man, go out there. My uncle had a pool, everything. It was great. I'm like a kid, man. I'm like, this is where I want to be, man. It's nice. It's spacious. Mm-hmm. He said, no, this is your home. And you take pride in your home. You keep your home clean. You do everything you need to do around the yard and all that other stuff. But we didn't leave. And he was adamant about that. And he could have left. I mean, we had a business and he was a pastor. We could have left. Yeah. He said, I'm not going anywhere. This is where I live. And as I got older, I began to understand how important that is, that he felt like I don't have to run out here and live among others to be considered successful.
One of the guys who retired from our department a few years back was from Detroit. Mm-hmm. And I asked him when he was about to retire what he was doing. He goes, I'm going back to Detroit. I go, oh, what do you mean? I go, do you have an area? I didn't know if there's an area. He goes, the area I'm from, I'm going to go back. He goes, first of all, I'm going to live like a king. Because, he did really well down here. Mm-hmm. He lived in South Florida, which is very expensive, high cost of living, so you make a little more money. And he was going back, and I thought, oh, and he goes, and there's a couple things I want to do. He goes, I want to be able to travel, so I'm going to spend a little less on a house. He goes, but number two, I want to teach those kids that you can do this. You can be successful. And I remember giving him a hug and going, that is awesome. Yeah. It was so cool because I remember thinking, who does that? Like nobody does it. Everybody, like you said, everybody gets out. Mm-hmm. And he got out. So and he said it. He goes, I got out. But I wanted to go back and show them you don't have to continue living in poverty. Mm-hmm. You can live in the same area and live in a wealthy lifestyle, but you have to work to do it. Here's how you're going to. And I talked to him a couple times since, and he said it's been hard, but he's made a difference. Sure, like what a difference that is for people to hear that.
Well, you've seen communities where there's a few black families. Have you ever seen a community where there's just a few white families? You haven't even heard of that.
I don't see color.
Because it just doesn't exist. It doesn't exist. So, I mean, and again, you go back to the redlining and all that other stuff like that. It's a whole long story about that. But as far as even those kids that he's going back to talk to, he's going to have to talk to those kids that are probably 12 years and below. Yes. Because the kids that are 13 and above have already probably been caught up in the system. And once you get caught up in the system, you cannot come out and be a firefighter. You cannot come out and be a police officer. You cannot go out and work for the post office. You can't work for any of these good paying local jobs that, you don't have to be a doctor to get degree to get. Mm-hmm. Because you got caught up on a weed charge. Or something stupid like that. Mm-hmm. Or something you did when you were 17. You're still paying for it at 35. Yeah. But it's the system. It's systemic. It's not a mistake. And they're like, well, you just obey the law and live better. Listen, these people don't have anything. Mm-hmm. They don't understand that what that guy's doing is not really the right thing to do. Right. Education system in the hood, horrible. Taxes are low. Schools are bad. taxes are high, schools are much better. Don't work like that. You want to entertain yourselves, people? Go look up on YouTube, Oprah, back in, I think, 93, she did a school switch. She took the neighborhood school, which happened to be the school right across the tracks from me. I didn't go to that school. I went to a different school. But she took that school and took it out into one of the white suburbs and brought like 20 kids, I think, swapped the schools. Unbelievable. Those kids were crying tears, not of fear. They were crying tears of, oh my God, this is what these kids have to do every day. Those kids went over to that school, had a band room. When they got to do band over there, the lady gave her one drumstick and you beat on the table to the time. Facts. They had an Olympic-sized pool over there. They had a pool here. It was bone dry. There was nothing in it. Didn't work. This is just the way it was. The gym, forget about it. It looked like LA Fitness over there. Over here, they had like one piece of equipment that actually worked. Wow. This is the way it is in the inner city areas. And so you wonder, well, why they had the same opportunity I have? Really? And guess who? What teachers go there? The last of the line, because, they just get out. They're new teachers. The other good teachers have moved on to better schools. Yeah. This is the only job they can get. They don't know anything. They only been on the job 1 or 2 years. So these kids are getting absolutely nothing. Do yourself a favor, look that up. I think it's 93 or 94, Oprah Winfrey school swap.
Let me ask you a question too so you talk about kids. I find it interesting that I feel like there's a generation now, and I don't know what the age is, but let's just, I don't know, kind of that under 25 who, obviously we joke about them not seeing color, but they don't care. Like, I feel like there's not a big concern. Like when my daughter said a friend was coming over, I never knew what race, ethnic, I didn't know because it could be anybody.
Right.
Which wasn't the way I grew up.
Right.
It was much more, I guess, not segregated may not be the right word, but I feel like that has improved. And do you think that changes the perspective? And maybe that hasn't improved, but to me it seems like it has. Has that changed the perspective of that generation to allow them to be more open to other ethnicities, other groups, other backgrounds?
I think so. And again, it's different areas. Now, again, you got to look into mixed areas because, I mean, if you came to my house while my kids were little, I'd have a house full of little blonde-haired kids running around there because those are my kids' friends. Yeah. And I mean, literally, and I was a single dad at that point, and I mean, they respected me so much, they let their kids stay with me for days at a time. And that was amazing to some people. Yeah. But, that's just who I was and who I proved myself to be with these other parents. But if you grew up in like I did, my area, from 1st grade through 8th grade, we had one white female.
She was the minority.
She was absolutely the minority.
Female and white.
One white female in my whole school. High school, no whites. We had 4 Chinese exchange students. We never saw them. They was kind of in their own little thing because we were a math academy, So these are real deal situations that we had to deal with. So had it not been for sports,
sports is the big.
That's the only way I got to be exposed out to other, just white people. Because in Illinois, that's what I saw when I went downstate. Was just, and so it was my first taste of it. And plus, with my father being in business, I got to deal with some of the business people. So I had a lot more going on for me than the average person that went to school with me. And my school was you had to test to get in there. It was a magnet school where we produced some of the best and brightest. Not the most well diverse because we just didn't have it like that. Yeah. So those kids, if they came home with a blonde-haired kid, you almost pass out. But where my kids went to school, no, it was a natural thing. Yeah. I coached football, I coached baseball, tennis, all of these kids wound up at my house. So it was just a melting pot at my house. So my kids never had a problem with that. So I think that generation, but kids who had the exposure early, I think they have a better chance to get over it. But again, your inner cities or your other extreme areas where there's only white, how are they going to integrate?
Yeah. I think parents have to be intentional. I mean,
absolutely,
you have to be intentional. You have to teach it. You have to believe it. And because here's the deal, you can pretend. You can pretend like you care.
Right.
But in your home, you can't get away with that. Your kids know. Like, We sat down at our dinner table, actually right here last night, and just sat and talked after dinner. And I said, "Hey, what do you guys think?" It was my daughter, it was her boyfriend, it was my wife. The four of us just kind of sat and talked. And my daughter had some very interesting things to say that I agreed with. Like, it was a very good perspective. But then I was able to share a little further, and some things that even push her a little bit beyond that. And she went, okay. And we didn't necessarily agree on all of it, but it was okay, because you have to start having that conversation. And today we've been running COVID testing down here, all of our mobile, running out the sites and everything. And we were not able to do it today. The weather was really bad. There's some other stuff going on. And I had all the group together. We had 15 of us. Very diverse group of guys and girls there that have come to do the program that work for us. And I said, hey, we're going to head back. I said, but before that, I said, I'm in charge of this site, so I got the platform, so I'm going to speak. And it was funny because Mike, the one who had talked to me, is standing there in front of me. He just kind of smiles. I'm like, here we go. Yeah. And I said, you guys may not like what I'm going to say, but I think it's important. And what I said to them was, I hope that during this time, I said, I've heard a lot of you talk about this, and we're all sharing about it. And I go, everybody has opinions. I said, I hope that you think enough of your brothers and sisters around you to be able to start having conversations at home, have conversations at your fire station, and then check your heart. I said, because what I said was, if you can, I saw this on Facebook the other day, it starts with changing your heart, then you change your home, and then it had a big picture of the world. If each of us took care of our front porch, if each of us took care of our home and took care of our stuff and made sure that our perspective was correct, we wouldn't have near the issues we have, obviously, but it would also help us open up to what's out there. And I just said to each of these guys, I said, listen, your job today is to go back and have a positive conversation. Have a conversation that allows you to listen and hear and to understand what's really happening with the people you work with, your coworkers, because we don't really have the issue of caring what people's background is when we're going into a fire. Right. I don't give a crap what you believe. What we've talked about this before. Absolutely. Sexual orientation. I don't care. Can you pull me out of that burning building? Absolutely. If I need you to do that, can you help me bring that hose in? Can you make sure that we treated this patient? All of those things are what we care about. But then when we get around the kitchen table, get on social media, we start to see what people really feel. Right. It's got to be consistent all the time. We have to be people who say, I care about my fellow man, the men and women I work with, all the way through, not just when we're standing here on duty, not just when we're coming to I need to be able to care enough about them to have conversations, to talk, to listen. Right. And that's just very, very difficult if you're not really in it. Yeah, as far as in it, I like that part of it, because when that means, and it's also tough too if you don't have a regular crew and all this other kind of stuff that's very true. So, because everybody's going to be iffy about what is sensitive to other people. Yeah. First of all, I think we're way too sensitive as a country, but that's just me. I think we're too sensitive as where it prohibits us from having conversations, real conversations. Yeah. Because you're afraid to offend somebody. God, that's a word I could live forever and not hear again. I'm offended. Yeah. Put it away. Because if you can't ask tough questions to your fellow person, you'll never get to know the real deal about them. And I really hope that we do take this opportunity and dig in. I know, again, my area where we work, we're more of a veteran group, so we have no problems doing that. But I'd like to see whether some of the younger guys feel comfortable having that conversation. We're all watching the news at 6 o'clock when we sit down to dinner. Be able to have a conversation about some of these tough stories. Because when this trial starts, it's going to be a lot of stuff thrown up against the wall. And you're going to, listen, it's some of these things that happen, it gets really sharp. It pierces your heart. And then you're going to look across the table and that guy's going to be like, see, I knew it. And you're going to want to jump across the table and choke him. Oh, is that just me? That might be just me. Sorry, y'all. But that's how I feel because I'm passionate about it. Yeah. But I know I can't do that, but I got to figure out at this point how to address it where I can open that conversation with said individual without making it hostile. Because I'm the one that always feels like I have to make it where it's not hostile. Because if I'm the one that's feeling a certain kind of way, I just want to explain it to me.
and then I'll give you my opinion if you're interested in hearing it.
Yeah.
So that's something I take on myself. I've always been like that. It's probably because of my father and the way he was as well. So, that demeanor, but we have to be able to talk. Very rarely do people like you that really want information will go up to a relative stranger and just ask them.
Yeah.
We're too afraid of that, because again, we're afraid of that unknown. That's that little Johnny getting sent over to the Glades on his first day, scared out of his mind. These people like that. We gotta but if you just do one thing and then you start working on your program and saying that no matter what they look like, they're human beings. And I'm gonna give them a chance to prove who they are as human beings. I have a thing I always say, look, I trust you. It's up to you whether you keep my trust.
Yeah.
But most people are the opposite way. I don't trust you, and I'm gonna give you a little bit as we go. Okay, that's fine for you. But the problem is with that is you don't give people a chance.
Yeah.
So if they say one wrong thing, that's it. Oh, I knew you was like that. And that happens so much. In my own personal life, I've seen it. In my coaching life, I've seen it. Where these guys love these kids until they did one thing wrong. Mm-hmm. Now I knew it. I knew he wasn't no good. What do you mean? He's 12.
Yeah.
He's going to screw up. He's going to have an emotional outburst. His girlfriend broke up with him. He's 13. He don't know what to do. He's going to have these moments, but it's up to us to be able to talk our way through it, and as far as in the firehouse, it's important because you really don't want to have, when that tone go off, you don't want to have unaddressed feelings for somebody on that truck.
Yeah, you don't need that.
You definitely don't need that. So you want to try to get as much handled as possible, but also too, at the end of the day, it just helps you to get to know these people, as human beings that are different from you.
So that leads me to the next question, which I heard a lot of people ask about. So this movement started a few years back called Black Lives Matter. Ooh. And I remember that I was like, well, all lives matter.
Oh.
Now listen, fortunately I never posted that. Because I've started to learn a little more about it, and I thought there been some great illustrations about that. So if you can explain to everyone why, because obviously all lives matter. I mean, that's very, very true. Everybody, you just said it. That's why I thought maybe think about it.
Yeah.
Humanity matters. Two humans who hate each other and a human who kills another, it's bad. It's sad. It's awful. But why is that statement made? And I actually, the reason I'm asking this is because I remember the conversation we had about why there was a Black History Month, and you explained to me. I was like, all history, and you're like, no, Jeremy, no, it doesn't. And you explained to me how that's how it's important. You were offended that it was the shortest month of the year. I was not
offended.
I'm just kidding.
I don't get offended.
But so explain, just from your perspective, on why that hashtag, that movement, why is that phraseology so important, and why is it offensive to hear someone say all lives matter?
I'm going to start there because it touches a different fiber in my body. The media has helped this country learn how to deflect. Okay, it has 100% helped us learn how to deflect. If it was so obvious that Black Lives Matter, nobody would have ever had to go hashtag Black Lives Matter. But the deflection was, well, all lives matter. Well, no, we get that. We see your life matters. You got this privilege that you were born into through no fault of yours. Mm-hmm. You didn't earn it. You were given this. And because you like the gift that you got, you're not so fast to give it away. So, look, we get that. But don't take away what we're trying to establish. Hey, we're here too. Maybe they should have said Black Lives Matter 2.
The number 2?
Yeah. Whichever way you want to put it. But that's the fact of it. And so it's a slap in the face when this massively oppressed group, and they can call it free if you want to, I call it free-ish. Free-ish. This free-ish group was trying to establish something to saying, hey, look at us. We're killing us by the boatload, and nobody's being punished for it. As a matter of fact, half the time they go on administrative leave, they get paid, they get to go back to work. A couple months later, paid vacation, they're good to go. No problems. Hey, we matter. We matter. So it is a big deal. It is a huge ordeal for the actual term. Now, as far as the movement itself, it's a whole lot of mess behind it, because I personally have issue that over the course of this country, every time a major black movement happened, it had to be funded and sourced by white people. George Soros is the funder of Black Lives Matter and that group. The SCLC, even back in the 60s, was funded by the government. They were getting funding. So whenever somebody's giving you the money, what else are they giving you? They're giving you what to do, how to control it. You're not free with it. So it's free-ish.
Okay.
And so I'm a little tainted by it, but it still doesn't take away the definition for me that Black Lives Matter.
The purpose. And I don't think I ever really understood it. And I don't know whether this is a good analogy or not, but it's what I saw earlier. I think it was yesterday, actually. And I thought it helped me understand it. So maybe you can tell me if I'm way off. But it was the illustration was this. They said, your child, there's a bunch of people in the pool, and your child starts to drown. And the lifeguard goes in to jump in to save that person. And all the other parents go, well, what about my child?
Yeah.
And
there's nobody watching my child.
They said, well, your child's okay. This child's drowning. And they were like, and I went, and it was literally like okay, that makes sense. So we're not dismissing everything else. We're assuming everything else is okay.
It's okay.
And when I heard that illustration about the pool, I went, oh. And I honestly never really understood the offensiveness of all lives matter, because you and I hadn't even talked about that back then.
No.
It would kind of just at the initiation phase of that. But I remember reading that yesterday and just going, wow. And so I think that's, once again, one of the positive outgrowths of this is that we can stop and go, okay, I don't have a television show to watch that I may watch. I don't have a movie theater to go to. I don't have sports to watch.
Watched everything on Netflix.
There's nothing left to watch. Maybe I'm watching looking at social media a little more, and you know what? I'm not going to play that game. I'm going to actually see what somebody says about this, and maybe somebody different than me. Maybe somebody that's very different than me and has something else to say about it, and I go, oh, okay. And I think that's where the learning point comes. And there's been a lot of that for me where I've gone, oh, okay, I was wrong on that, or oh, I actually was right on this. And you can learn and take it all in, evaluate it, filter it out, figure it out, have conversations with people who are different than you, and learn from those things. Because then it made sense. It wasn't there's just a bunch of hateful people out there who are just angry. Well, no, that's not it at all.
No.
And it seems like that because of the perspective you're giving it from.
Yeah. I would give you one more that really gets under the skin there is when you watch the video and you see this officer shoots this guy and he just dead over whatever reason. And that particular group says, no, there's got to be more to the story. He's dead over a $20 bill.
Yeah.
That's what's more to the story.
Yeah.
He's dead because the officer got angry or he got his feelings hurt. But when you look at what a lot of these deaths over the last decade at least have been over, it's mind-blowing how minuscule the quote-unquote crime was. Alton Sterling selling CDs out in front of the store. This man is dead. Selling CDs. The other guy selling cigarettes on the corner. He's dead. Think about that. We respond to a man selling CDs and he's dead. Counterfeit 20, whether it was or not, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
He's dead. How does that call turn into dead? You know, these are the things that irks you, because it's like, man, you really don't give a damn about these people. Not one. Dead. Tatiana Jefferson at her own home playing video game with her nephew. You gonna shoot her through the window? Dead. How you don't know who ring the doorbell? She's dead.
Yeah.
No regard. just no regard for these people. And that's right under the skin. That gets right under the skin. It hurts. That's when you don't know whether to be mad or hurt. That's where I am when I think about these things. I got pages of these. I got pages of this.
Yeah. Well, and I think that it doesn't take away from the fact that even now in this response, so we talked about the protests, right? We talked about the peaceful protests. And I see people see that like a police officer shot, and they'll go, well, see, this is the whole. Well, no.
Yeah.
Listen, it's same thing. Wrong. That's wrong. That's wrong. We can list all the wrongs, but we can't go, well, I'm upset that this happened over here, and I'm okay that this happened here, or I'm upset that this happened here, and I'm okay with this.
Yeah.
That's the part that I find frustrating too, because I feel like maybe not necessarily within fire departments and stations, because people are probably scared of having a lot of those conversations, but some places.
Yeah.
But on social media as a whole, I feel like people want to go one direction or the other. Like, I need to be able to defend every police officer, and this guy in particular, for what he did.
Yes.
And I'm going to condemn every person that kills a police officer,
Right.
or vice versa.
Right.
I'm going to defend these people that kill police officers because they're angry about what happened over here. All of this is wrong.
It's wrong.
And I think that people want to jump on one side or the other. We're trying to express to you all out there, they're both wrong. Now, there's different things that have gone on in the past for each of them. And there's, like you said, the many years that have come behind a lot of this is what we have to understand and learn. That's what I'm trying to get myself to understand and learn better. It doesn't change that what happens is wrong and it has to be done. But we don't need to go, okay, well, that cop killed that man, so all cops are bad.
Right.
Those protesters became looters, or those individuals are taking advantage of a situation and are looting or stealing or killing or whatever else.
Right.
And then all people are in that. We have to stop and evaluate each of these situations and go, how do I look at each one individually, and how do we just start treating people nicer? How do we start treating people for who they are? How do we start giving people the benefit of the doubt? That is where, and I think the illustration you gave of like an Oprah and a Michael Jordan is awesome. If we looked at people and valued them as we want people to value us, then that's a biblical principle.
Oh, it is.
If you could value people the way you want to be valued, do you ever doubt your own motives? I never doubt my own motives. I know that my motives are always, I'm trying to do the right thing.
Right.
For the most part. I mean, maybe a couple of times.
Sometimes.
But for the most part, I'm trying to eat right. I'm trying to work out. I'm trying to be nice to people. I know that if I'm doing something and I do something wrong at work, it's not intentional. I'm trying to do the right thing.
Right.
If we looked at everybody else and went, hey, for the most part, people are really trying to do the right thing, and had that,
do the right thing.
you wouldn't see people through the filter of just their race.
Right.
You would see people as humans and go, they're trying to do their best in the situation they're in.
Let me add to that, because I wanted to get to the whole thing you were talking about with the cops and everything. Another thing that I got to make sure I spend some time on is, well, black on black crime has absolutely nothing to do with police brutality. I'm going to say that again. Black on black crime has absolutely nothing to do with police brutality. Two completely separate entities. I'll give you an example. The cop, as we said, he went to academy, even though it was only 8 months or so, whatever, but he's been trained, he's paid to serve and protect. Trained, paid to serve and protect. Enforce the law. All well and good. His job is to serve and protect the community. Serve and protect the community. Do the best he can to serve and protect the community. Little guy, little Johnny out the hood, how much training has he had? Only what he got. Okay. So no formal training. Okay. Is he being paid? No. Does he has a sworn duty to serve and protect? No. So look, what goes on in the community, person to person, has absolutely nothing or no regard to do with police brutality. We expect them to know better. They're supposed to be the people we're able to run to for safety and refuge. Instead, we are as afraid of them as we are of the bad apples over here, little Johnny and his gang. that is a problem. And that's part of that deflection that your news outlets have taught you to say. Well, it wouldn't be so bad if you guys weren't killing each other. I don't care what the rate is, because every ethnicity kills each other at a higher rate. Whites kill whites higher than black kill white. Period. Brown, do it all, mix it up, I don't care. That's the fact. But can we please stop linking the two together, because they have absolutely nothing to do with one another. Take that to your firehouse, take that to your church, take that to everybody you know, because that will set the fire off, because it's got nothing to do with each other.
Where are we at on our time?
Oh, we good. No. You got a minute.
So I wanted to follow up on that. I think that those are the kind of things that you and I talked about that I don't necessarily understand. I'm learning, and I'm listening and learning. And I think that I look to a lot of our leaders, police leaders, like some of these police chiefs, and you watch what some of them have said, and you go, wow, that guy gets it. That girl gets it. Like, you can just understand and see just the way things are handled. I love what that Flint, Michigan sheriff the other day.
Yes.
What do you want?
That's it.
You know what? I'm going to walk, takes his helmet off, his baton. Now, you can't do that in every community. I get it. It's not perfect, and that was a perfect timing. But that's more of what we need. That's what we're trying to call for. That's what we want to see, because we start to see we're going to walk hand in hand in this. We're going to walk arm in arm in this, and we're going to see change made together. But there's just not enough of that right now.
Just not enough.
I think tonight's been a good conversation. It's a good start. And I think that what it's reminded me, that kind of this whole process has reminded me that we have to be involved. We can't just sit back and do nothing. One of the interesting things I saw with that Blackout Tuesday is I saw one guy just get on. He's a black man who was just angry about the fact there was a Blackout Tuesday. People are missing the point. I go, well, hold on. Like I looked into it before I actually posted anything about it. I looked into it, and I went, well, let me see if this is something I can kind of get behind. I'm like, yeah, I think so.
Right.
Well, maybe it's not making a huge difference, but at least nobody's killing anybody. Nobody's looting anything. Nobody's having wrong protest. They're having a conversation. It's great. We have to not be afraid of making a decision to go ahead and go, hey, I'm going to do something different. So don't be afraid of even saying the wrong thing, as long as the intentions are correct, the motives are correct. Don't be afraid of that. Have conversations with people that are different than you. And man, the other thing, I said something the other day, I said, quit complaining about politicians. Quit complaining do something about it.
Right.
Vote them out if you don't want them. You know, and we don't need to look at one party as the fix either. Because here's the other thing I see. I see people go, well, I believe this side, so all conservatives are what we need to do. Well, I believe this side, so all different. Listen, look at each individual on what they believe, what their platform is, what they stand for individually.
Judge the person.
Yeah, because we have got to get away from this. I'm this party, because we do the same thing with race that we do, and we do the same thing with politics. We go, well, I believe this because this is a Republican, or I believe this because it's a Democrat. We've got to get away from that and start to get to the point where we look at things the right way, and we look at each individual. So for me, that's part of it. But I really just kind of wanted to wrap my part up by just reminding people what I said at the beginning, which is we had this conversation because we want other people to have the same conversation.
Absolutely.
You and I don't talk about race all the time.
No.
We actually just normally talk about eating our keto lifestyle and trying to be healthier than we are already, and trying to do the right thing, and
recapture our youth.
Yeah, we talk about our families, we talk about work. Race doesn't always have to be the topic, and I know that as this makes its way through the news cycle, I'll put in quotes, there's going to be a trial. There's going to be the pieces that bring you back in and do those, but don't let the news cycle determine how you feel about it. Don't let the news cycle determine how much you think about it. Don't let the news cycle determine your belief about it.
Right.
You can learn from it. You can choose your sources appropriately, all that stuff. But allow the passion for what is right to be what leads you, and allow yourself to have the conversation with your kids, your girlfriend, your boyfriend, your significant other, the people you work with, your parents. That's been one of the coolest things to me, is having the conversation with my mom that I never thought I would have.
Right.
And learn from this and get better. Learn from other people and realize I may not agree with everything Vince says. I may not even understand some of the things he says, and I may hear some of the things and go, I don't know if I buy that part of it. Okay, but I'm listening.
Right.
And I'm not going, whoa, let me call you out on that.
Right.
Some of the things you said, I'm like, oh, I'm going to go watch that Oprah story. I'm going to go watch that. I'm going to watch that tomorrow because I want to see what that is because that's intriguing to me.
Incredible.
So let this be an opening for you. Let this be a change for you. Let this be a difference. And I believe that we are in a position as a country, as kind of intense and maybe scary for some people as the last couple weeks have been, this is where change is made.
Right.
Because we get to a place that goes, something's got to be different. Mm-hmm. I'm going to be a part of it or I'm going to fight it. You know what? I'm going to be a part of it. And if we can get people to start thinking that way, man, why not have the fire service be one of the main leaders of that? Why we are shaped for that.
Right.
We are side by side, arm in arm all the time. We should be the people leading that instead of some of our firehouses throwing, some of our social media comments we see from some of the people that are in fire services and going, calling people names and calling. It's not what we need. We need to be the ones who come together, who lead this charge and see a change so that our kids, our grandkids have very different conversations 40, 50 years from now than we're having right now. That we're not talking about police killings. We're not talking about disparity. We're talking about humanity.
Right.
And once again, seeing color, of course.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sure.
Got to see that color.
And not being offended.
Not be offended. Please don't get offended. No, those are phenomenal points. I grew up a little bit different in many respects because, again, I was the late child. I was number 6 of 6. The kid before me was already 15 years old when I was born. So my parents were born in Mississippi in 1926 and 1929.
Really?
Yes.
See, I learned something else tonight.
So all of my grandparents were born either in the late 1800s or I think one made it to 1901.
Wow.
So I grew up with a whole different perspective where my father never made it through an entire year of school because he had to go out and pick cotton with the family. So, and after he did parts of school through 6 years, they said that's enough. You've done enough school. It's time for you to come out and help pick cotton, and so the family could eat. During the sharecropper years. My mother, had a little bit different upbringing. She was able to go to school. She came up and actually finished there. Long story short, they did a lot of hard work. They hustled. They ran a successful dry cleaning business, which we kept for 50 years before we finally shut it down. But he and my uncles had no education, but they had the hustle. They had the desire to make it. But what they wanted for us was to do better, be better. So they did everything they could, sacrifice, so we could have that opportunity. But they also taught us the things that they had to go through in that process, the things that they had to endure during that process. Because my paternal grandfather, his father was the plantation owner. He was an Irishman, which produced my father. My grandfather he could pass for white. He used to go into the white bars in Mississippi and sit and drink until my grandmother would send the kids to go get him. And they'd say, whose kids are these? And I'm not going to call them what they called them. Those are my kids. He's drunk at the bar. And then they throw him out.
Oh my
because
goodness.
now they realize, because that's what was going on during those years.
Yeah.
So all of these lessons was passed down, and I learned a lot of these things coming up, so I knew the difference between being accepting and being tolerant.
Yeah.
I knew the difference between, man, this kid, he really likes hanging out with me, or we're just, we get along when we have to play together.
Yeah.
So there's differences, and it's the same thing with even the same races. You're not going to get along with everybody, but you learn how to tolerate everybody, and you respect everybody's space.
Yeah.
So if we could just really implement some of that, and I agree with you, I think the firehouse should be the model for that behavior. I think that we are the right people, because when we go out to people, they call us because they're having a bad day. Nobody ever calls us because this is the best day of their life. Okay? They're having a really, really bad day. Whether we think it's an emergency or not, they think it's an emergency.
Yeah.
So we go out there and we present that out there to these people. So my job is to make them laugh so we can, find out how serious the situation is or not. I want to leave those people home, have them saying, man, they did me right. Mm-hmm. And it really works good when your crew feels that way. And it's a beautiful feeling when they come by and want to drop off something nice to you. Yeah. And they do. And we all appreciate that when they do that, because it's not what you bring, it's just the sentiment. Yeah. Although I can't have the donuts on the keto, but whatever, it still works out, and I appreciate the sentiment. But as Jeremy was saying, if we could just treat each other the way we want to be treated. You said it's a Bible thing right in there. Yeah. So if we could just do that, you don't have to be of a certain religion or anything, but if you could just say, I'm going to treat these people the way I want my mother to be treated, or the way I want to be treated, man, this would be such a much better place. Yeah. Politics. You said it's not about a party thing, and I'm about as independent as it can be, because there are people on the opposite side where I normally vote that I think are great. Yeah. So I say you judge the individual, don't judge the party. I also say that you have a much better effect, and especially my folks, I tell us all, man, look, stop watching Washington so hard. Get to know your local politicians. Yes. Get to know who's on your council. Yes, get to know who your local DA, who your judges are. Look up the records. See if they've, you felt like they screwed somebody over. And then pull a bunch of people together and go vote. Take control of that office with your vote. $1 is equal to a vote. How you spend your dollar. So support your local, even if it costs an extra 50 cents to shop at your local store, support them as opposed to going to the big conglomerate because it can save you $1. Because they're in your neighborhood. And if the owners don't look like you want them to look, fix that. Fix that. Somebody in your family can fix that. We'll leave that to your imagination how you do it. But let's get back together. Let's go back and try to rebuild a Tulsa, Oklahoma. Let's try to be sufficient, but you got to educate yourself, and our education is not bookwork. Man, with the technology we have right now, we're doing a show in your home. Yeah. You can learn anything you want to learn just by opening up your computer, picking up your cell phone, going online. Everybody has that opportunity. So anything less than that is an excuse. And so I just implore everybody to just make a concerted effort to be nice. To sit down and now with all, you've been locked in the house, you probably realize that you've been doing a whole lot of extra ripping and running that just made you more tired, which made you more irritable. Yeah. You're probably a nicer person right now because you've been at home. Most people have not spent this much time at a dinner table in their entire family's life. Yeah. Most people have dinner at 6:37, whatever. But it's together. Yeah. Board games. Build your family. Yeah. But let's encourage diversity. Yes. Whether you get in your car and go somewhere, and I don't care if you go volunteer at a soup kitchen and go feed the homeless. Talk to the people. Don't just slap some food on their plate and send them going. Yeah. Talk to the people. Hey, they were people too, before they were probably successful before something bad happened to them. Mental health, huge. That's probably what happened. We don't know until we talk to these people. Yeah. So I'm going to wrap my part up here and say that I really want us to try as individuals to do better. If every individual try to do better, then as a group, we have a much better opportunity to do better. Let's stop prejudging people based on the inherent things that you've learned from the TV and from the media and from, I don't care if your great-grandparents, I don't care. Judge the individuals after you get to know them. Yeah. The outcome will be so much better. Yeah. And then you might learn to love them. Yeah. That's another biblical thing, right? I
think so, yeah.
Yeah, something like that.
Let's call it,
Okay. Yeah. So that's what it is, man. If we can do all of that, then it's going to grow into something that we learn to love humanity. We're going to wrap it up with that humanity word. Yeah. So
doesn't have to be utopia. It's going to get better.
Just going to get better every day. If you do better every day, then somebody else has an opportunity to do better every day. It's infectious.
I think another thing is if you find yourself frustrated by watching this video, you're probably part of the problem.
You're probably part of the problem.
If you are frustrated by people's posts, you're frustrated by what they're saying, you're missing the point.
Yeah.
Stop and listen.
Just listen.
Stop and learn. And I'm talking on both sides.
Absolutely.
Stop and listen. Stop and learn. Thanks, man. Thanks for us getting together. It's been good. Vince, one of my favorite people in the world, and hopefully we helped you guys. This is the way we need to do it. Okay, so thank you for joining us. Thanks, Vince.
Thanks for having it, and we'll be getting these out to our profiles.
Somewhere
soon. So
yeah, I mean, by next year this will be on somewhere.
Yeah. All right, guys. For the Hurd group and for Team Bell Training, man, we're gonna wish you guys good night. We'll see you guys on the next one.